Hippies. We all know what hippies are, and we all know what Gen Z is. They don't often get compared, but I think they should. First of all, just in case you're not aware, what is a hippie, and what is Gen Z? Well, a hippie is someone who was involved in counterculture in the 1960s and the early 1970s. The hippies were protesting against war in a replacement for peace. Gen Z is the current generation in their 20s, born from 1997 to 2012, and they are characterized by an upbringing in the digital age. The 1960s and the 2020s are two very different decades. One has computers that fill whole rooms. The other has tiny computers that are able to fit into your pocket. Although they may seem very different, they still have some similarities, like rebelling against the government, changing what is socially acceptable, and fighting for love. Even though these time periods are 60 years apart and couldn't be any more different, they still have some things that remain the same throughout history. The article Analyzing Generation Z Communication Attitudes, Values, and Norms defines a generation as, quote, generations can be divided separately. It is a group of people who are geographically related. They have experienced some major social, technological, and cultural events while growing up, end quote. Let's talk a little bit more about the 1960s. The 1960s was the first time in history where a person could truly do whatever they wanted. It was the first decade where a person wasn't defined by what they were born into. A woman didn't have to be a stay-at-home housewife. They could go to college and potentially get jobs. Men didn't have to conform to what their fathers wanted them to be. While there was more opportunity than there had ever been before, there was also, unfortunately, a war, the Vietnam War. And any able-bodied man in their early 20s were in danger of being drafted into the Vietnam War. This was the first time in history that fighting for America was looked down upon because of how bloody this war was. Now, it was about as bloody as every other war, but the only difference is that this was the first war that was televised. According to Digital Humanities, quote, the anti-Vietnam War sentiment was deeply intertwined with the counterculture's promotion of psychedelics and alternative lifestyles. As the horrors of war became increasingly visible through media coverage, the movement rejected militarism outright, advocating for peace
for the first
and
time,
harmony. All of America could see for themselves how dishonorable war really is, how bloody and dark it is. No one wanted to be drafted into this war, partially because of how violent it appeared to be on TV, and partially because of how socially repulsive any Vietnam War vet was. Dodging the draft became a very popular thing at the time. One could run away to Canada, or go to college, or permanently injure themselves. For instance, my grandpa only went to college to avoid being drafted. It's actually where he met my grandma, and he went to Western Kentucky, which is where I go to school. With this war and the new freedoms these youth now had, inspired the counterculture movement the hippie movement of the late 60s and early 70s. The main purpose of this movement was stopping the Vietnam War. Those who were a part of the hippie movement just wanted peace and progress. Now, the next time a whole generation fundamentally changed societal norms is actually now, with Gen Z. The article Analyzing Generation Z Communication Attitudes, Values, and Norms defines Gen Z as, quote, the background of Generation Z is shaped by the social, technological, and cultural influences that have characterized the world during their formative years, end quote. Gen Z has notoriously experienced many historical events like COVID, the first black president, mass school shootings, and George Floyd, and the aftermath of that. And that's just a few examples. Gen Z has also witnessed the rise of fascism in the government, which is a current problem that will probably not be resolved anytime soon, unfortunately. Needless to say, Gen Z has had to fight against a lot and try to change the world in their own ways. Some examples of this are Gen Z changing the workplace norms, changing family norms, and so on. Unlike previous generations who have put working over their own personal lives and happiness, Gen Z has placed workplace boundaries and communicated the amount of effort that they are willing to give employers. Employers are not happy with this. According to the article, Analyzing Generation Z Communication Attitudes, Values, and Norms, quote, 58% of Gen Zers would want to have a good work-life balance, end quote. That's a lot of people who are trying to change these norms, and that's why I and so many other Gen Zers are confident in what we want, because we are not the only ones who want it. And I know in the future battle against fascism and for this country, Gen Z will rise up and fight for peace and equality, just like the hippies in the 60s did, because we are just as passionate. Now, thank you for watching my video. Have a good day.